Do you ever feel like your brain is just, I don't know, a crowded inbox? You've
Yeah.
got notifications pinging, headlines screaming, that endless scroll.
Mm-hmm.
And meanwhile, you're just trying to focus on one single thing. Maybe it feels like your attention is constantly being, you know,
Yeah.
hijacked, pulled this way and that by everything but what you actually want to pay attention to.
Yeah, it's incredibly common in our modern world, isn't it? We're just surrounded by things designed specifically to grab and hold our attention, often without us even realizing it.
Absolutely. So what if we told you that understanding and maybe mastering your attention and awareness isn't just about being more productive?
Right.
What if, according to the material we've been digging into, it's actually a fundamental key to shaping your, well, your entire reality?
That's exactly the fascinating territory we're exploring today.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been digging deep into these sources from Miracles of Attention and Awareness, and they present some pretty counterintuitive ideas about how our focus works.
And our mission for this deep dive really is to pull out the most surprising insights and practical, actionable ideas from this stuff. We want to help you understand the profound power of attention.
Mm-hmm.
How shifting your focus, even in subtle ways, can impact, well, everything. Your mood, your relationships, whether you hit your goals. Think of this as a shortcut to grasping some potent concepts about your own mind.
Okay, let's unpack this.
So the source starts right away by making this distinction between foreground and background attention. Like
Okay.
right now, you're likely focused on our voice, the words we're saying.
Right.
That's the foreground. It's kind of widget-specific focus, like reading words on a screen.
I was like zooming in, yeah, tightly on one thing. But the source asks, can you also be aware of the background at the same time?
Exactly.
The room you're in, the sounds around you, the light, the temperature, maybe the feel of the chair.
Mm.
It's not about splitting your focus and consciously thinking about each little thing, but more of an inclusive awareness. Precisely. The background is that broader, sort of effortless awareness that can just take in the whole scene. The source actually encourages practicing being aware of both simultaneously the foreground words and the background environment, but crucially, without effort or tension.
And it goes even further. It suggests you can become aware of the empty space, the space between your eyes and the screen you might look at later, the space around your device, even the space between lines of text.
Mm.
And it frames this not as another thing to focus on, but as a shift from that rigid grip on the foreground to a more relaxed, expansive, inclusive awareness, taking in the space around what you're focusing on.
And here's where the source makes its first really striking claim. It suggests that this rigid, narrow focus, this like tight grip of attention, it might actually be the root of all problems you've ever encountered in life.
Whoa, hang on.
Yeah.
All problems. That's a huge claim. How does it connect rigid attention to, everything going wrong?
Well, the argument is that rigid attention creates this kind of this or that tunnel vision, When your attention is rigidly fixed only on the problem or the lack or the fear.
You become blind to everything else.
Exactly. Possibilities, solutions, resources, the broader context, even your own inner resilience. It's that narrow, tense focus that creates the feeling of being stuck and, well, overwhelmed.
I see. So instead of that open, effortless awareness that can take everything in calmly, rigid attention puts you in a stressed, constricted state, locked onto the negative. That makes sense.
Exactly. And the source illustrates this with a pretty simple example. You're reading online, you encounter a link.
Right.
Does your attention rigidly grab onto that anxiety of, oh no, I might miss something, and you just compulsively click it? Or can you calmly note it, sort of include that data point in your broader awareness and choose to keep reading? Maybe decide to check the link later.
Oh, that highlights the core difference, doesn't it? It's reactive attention getting pulled around versus intentional attention that you direct consciously. It's the difference between being like jerked around by that rigid grip and operating from a calm, choice-worthy space.
It's really a foundational concept for everything else the source gets into.
Okay, let's think about that idea of attention being pulled. The source has this really vivid example of what happens when you get too much attention, right? To the point of overload.
Ah, the overstaffed hotel breakfast room.
Yeah.
Yeah. Imagine being the only guest. Okay, and there are like 10 staff members just fussing around you.
Oh, man.
One seats you, one arranges the napkin you just arranged, one immediately asks about coffee variations, another starts prepping an omelet you didn't even ask for.
They're constantly hovering, asking what you want, whisking away your plate the second you finish.
Yeah, you just wanted a quiet breakfast, right?
Yeah.
And you're being bombarded with excessive attention and this parade of unwanted choices. feels intrusive, overwhelming. You just want them to leave you alone.
It perfectly captures that feeling of attention overload. How too much external attention, even if it's well-meaning, can feel suffocating and just unpleasant.
You feel invaded,
Yeah.
wanting nothing more than peace and quiet.
And the source contrasts this with the flip side. The problem of too little choice. It tells the story of a woman unhappy in her marriage, who the source claims had severely limited her perceived options over like 20 years of unhappiness.
Yeah, the source argues that her misery stemmed from this constricted attention that could only see one path, one way to deal with the situation, one person, one set of possibilities. She was essentially blind to alternative ways to communicate or to improve herself or even to just envision a different future.
So the lack of perceived choices wasn't necessarily about external reality limiting her, but her own attention being so narrow she couldn't see the other options, options that were potentially available all along.
Exactly. Like someone looking for a business partner but only considering the very first person they meet, instead of opening their attention to dozens, maybe hundreds, to find a better fit. The source posits that pretty much any difficulty in life can be traced back to this kind of constricted attention, being blind to possibilities.
How does our energy level factor into this? Our ability to handle choices?
That's a fascinating point the source makes here. It suggests the capacity to handle many choices is directly tied to your energy level. Remember that restaurant example?
Yeah, the overwhelming breakfast.
In that tired, overwhelmed state, the author just wanted things done for him, simple choices. But on a day filled with zest and high energy, he might have genuinely enjoyed exploring an infinite menu of options.
So a matured consciousness, as the source puts it, has total freedom to choose from infinite possibilities, but also the energy and clarity to intentionally select just a few to focus on.
Right. It's about conscious selection, not being overwhelmed. And the source warns if you disperse your attention across too many desired realities at once,
Nothing happens.
well, none of them can fully manifest because your attention, which it describes as a form of energy, remember, is just too thinly spread.
That's a crucial point. You have to kind of pick one path, dedicate your attention and energy to it, manifest it, and then you're free to choose another. Trying to manifest 10 things at once just fizzles out.
And building on this idea of intentional choice, the source offers a really powerful principle about external resistance. It suggests that if other people are doubting your choices or trying to prevent them,
It's not really about them.
it's not because they have power over you, no. It's because you haven't truly, fully made the choice within yourself yet.
So external friction is like a mirror of internal hesitation.
Precisely. The source says a strong decision made within, with your full attention and intention, is described as practically unstoppable. It reminds me of an exercise mentioned where a student had to maintain a positive state while being, heckled.
Right.
If their inner choice to stay in that state was strong enough, the external pressure didn't derail them. It actually seemed to solidify their internal focus.
That's so counterintuitive and empowering, really,
Yeah.
using external challenges to reinforce your inner decision.
It's all about where you ultimately direct that attention.
Okay, this brings us to another key idea from the source. This claim that attention itself is a form of energy, and that this energy can be sent and felt by others.
Yeah, this is where the source enters somewhat, let's say, controversial territory for some people. It points to research like Rupert Sheldrake's experiments on the sense of being stared at.
Oh, I've heard of those.
Right, where people correctly identified being watched from behind at rates significantly higher than chance. The author claims his own replications consistently showed a 70-75% hit rate, which he feels strongly supports this idea.
And the source notes the resistance this kind of research faces, right, within some parts of the scientific community.
It does. It even mentions instances like Sheldrake or Graham Hancock having university talks canceled or TED Talks removed. It frames it as established paradigms resisting ideas that suggest consciousness isn't just, locked inside the brain.
So it's reporting on these events as examples of how challenging this concept, attention as an externalizable energy, can be for certain existing viewpoints, regardless of the experimental results.
Exactly. It's presented as evidence of the resistance to this idea, not necessarily endorsing every aspect, but pointing out the friction.
It certainly sparks some thought. If attention is an energy, how fundamentally does that connect to what we experience as reality?
Well, the source is very direct about this. You only perceive what you give attention to. If you consciously withdraw your attention from something, it effectively stops existing for you until you decide to give it attention again.
Wow. So Our perception isn't just passively receiving data, it's actively constructed by where we direct this energy of attention. We literally make things real for us just by focusing on them.
According to the source, yes. And this principle has some profound implications, particularly when it comes to something like pain.
Pain is definitely something that demands attention. It grabs it.
It really does. The source uses classic examples. If you're focused on pain in your arm, right, and then someone steps hard on your foot,
The arm pain vanishes.
suddenly the arm pain seems to disappear, yeah.
Yeah.
Or if you fall deeply in love, the arm pain might lessen or vanish. Or in a more dramatic extreme, the source posits if, say, a nuclear explosion occurred nearby, you wouldn't be thinking about your arm pain anymore because your attention would be completely consumed elsewhere.
Okay, those show the power of distraction. But the source makes an even more surprising claim that you can actively dissolve emotional and even physical pain by intentionally directing your attention to it, but in a very specific way.
Yes, they describe a technique. It involves calmly bringing your attention to the very center of the pain or feeling, then mentally duplicating it or replicating it somewhere else in your awareness, and then consciously shifting your attention completely away to something else neutral or pleasant. By repeatedly alternating your attention between the pain, engaged with curiously, without resistance, and something else they claim you can reduce or even dissolve the sensation over time.
That's a powerful alternative to just suppressing pain or trying to distract from it constantly. It's about using attention as a tool on the pain itself.
It definitely points towards the potential for, self-healing and conscious control over physical and emotional states, shifting reliance away from purely external interventions where possible.
Okay, so attention is this powerful energy, shapes perception, can even impact pain. But it feels like our attention gets stuck so often on things we don't want. How does that happen?
The source identifies three main culprits that can kind of fix or get your attention stuck: desire, resistance, and trauma.
Right. Desire for something makes you focus intensely on it. Resistance to something makes you constantly push against it, keeping it front and center. And trauma, well, understandably, can trap attention in the past.
And here's the central paradox the source highlights. The very act of wanting to change a problem or resisting something you dislike, it actually puts your attention precisely on the unwanted thing.
Ah, the classic vicious circle. You desperately want to stop worrying about money, but trying not to worry just keeps your attention fixed on the lack of money.
Exactly. Or you want to overcome a fear, but resisting the fear means you're constantly focused on the fear itself. Your intention to fix or resist inadvertently locks your attention onto the very issue you want to move away from.
So if desire, resistance, and trauma are internal factors that get us stuck, what about externally? What controls our attention day to day? The source gives a list, doesn't it?
It does. It poses the question directly to you, the listener. Is your attention controlled by television, the internet, social media, your phone, your job, relationships, career, marriage, your body, books, celebrities, your children, friends, or just the general media landscape?
Wow, that list feels incredibly relevant and maybe a little uncomfortable in our connected world. So many external forces vying for our focus.
It's really a prompt for self-reflection, isn't it? On where your attention is actually being spent versus where you intend for it to be spent. And the source follows this up by suggesting one of the most potent tools for intentionally directing your attention.
Which is?
The questions you ask yourself.
Yes, the idea of potent question.
Exactly. Contrasting a question like, why am I so miserable? Which just anchors your attention firmly onto the problem.
Right.
With something like, how can I find more joy today? Which immediately steers your attention towards potential solutions and positive actions. Or even better, this source suggests, how can I enjoy the process of finding more joy today?
Oh, I love that. It adds a layer of positive experience right into the search itself. The source emphasizes that the type of questions you habitually ask yourself fundamentally steers your attention and, therefore, your direction in life.
And it really boils down to that deceptively simple principle. To create good conditions for yourself, you just need to dedicate more attention to what is good, what's desired, what's working well, rather than constantly focusing on what is wrong or lacking.
It requires conscious effort, though, to redirect that ingrained habit of problem-focused attention.
It certainly does. It takes practice.
Okay, let's think about how this concept of attention plays out in how we interact with the world and with other people. The source has some interesting observations about attracting, or maybe not attracting, attention in public.
It uses the example of politicians or stage magicians, right? They use something bright and flashy, a distraction, to control mass attention.
A misdirection.
Exactly. While everyone is focused on the spectacle over here, the real manipulations or secrets are happening unnoticed over there in the background.
That makes a lot of sense.
The author also shares a personal experiment. Trying to leave a restaurant without paying, then obviously returning. He realized he was essentially invisible when he acted exactly as expected, just walking calmly, not making eye contact, blending in. Any unusual or surprising behavior, however, immediately drew attention. Unless, he noted, it could be quickly rationalized away by the staff, like, oh, he must be looking for the restroom.
So to be inconspicuous, you just behave predictably, neutrally.
Pretty much. Don't give anyone's attention a reason to latch on to you. And conversely, if you want to attract positive attention, the key is to be genuinely interested in your surroundings and, crucially, in other people. The source states a really powerful principle here. People you are interested in become interested in you.
That's so true. You can feel it, can't you? When someone is genuinely present and engaged with you, you feel seen and you're naturally drawn to them. That calm, absorbed, interested energy makes you appear more interesting.
It's about the quality of your attention being outward and engaged, rather than inward and self-conscious or worried.
The source also links what attracts or repels our attention to our inner stuff, our ideals, beliefs, values. It uses the example of how people react so differently to dogs based on their past experiences or beliefs about them.
Yeah, your internal framework acts like a filter, right? Determining what jumps out at you and what just seems unimportant or neutral. So to attract attention from a crowd, you'd present something that aligns strongly with shared loves or hates.
And to avoid attention,
Present something neutral, something people don't have strong feelings about one way or the other.
And the source makes a kind of poignant observation about desperation for positive attention, sometimes leading people to resort to negative behavior, because any attention feels better than being completely ignored.
It really highlights that fundamental human need for connection and acknowledgement, even if it's sought in, misguided ways sometimes.
The source also discusses the significance of holding your gaze when you're interacting with others.
Yeah, it suggests that in an unloving state, maybe feeling disconnected or fearful, people tend to avoid eye contact. Their eyes might dart around, or they might stare too fixedly in an unnatural way.
But people who are authentically connected.
Like those newly in love, the classic example. They can hold a soft, natural gaze for long periods, which the source interprets as a sign of complete openness and presence. Holding a soft, natural gaze in public isn't necessarily aggressive. It signals a willingness to communicate, to engage.
And the source touches on something more subtle, too, suggesting that, say, teachers or healers can send telepathic commands through their eyes with intention.
Sort of nonverbal energy transfer, perhaps just focusing loving attention or an intention for well-being through that visual connection. And the author claims that by simply really looking at people, not staring, but with open, extended attention, you can pick up a wealth of intuitive information about them. Because most people's gaze is usually quite scattered and unfocused.
That's a powerful idea, that just directing clear, open attention can reveal so much beyond words.
It emphasizes the quality and the intention behind how we use our gaze. Definitely.
So we've talked about how attention works, how it's used in interaction. How do we actually cultivate more awareness and more intentional attention? The source offers several practices. One is about letting go of excessive thinkingness.
Yeah, the source makes the case that incessant compulsive intellectual thinking, always seeking answers, it isn't always the path to truth or well-being. It kind of compares thinking to filtering energy. You only get a tiny mediated bit of reality through the intellect alone.
And suggests that letting go of that constant need to analyze and intellectualize can actually make you smarter in a different way.
More intuitive.
More intuitive, yeah. More in touch with unfiltered life energy. And a simple way to practice this is just watching your breathing for a minute or two.
Just observing the breath.
Yeah. It's a way to calm the mind chatter and immediately connect back to feeling, which the source links to life energy. It contrasts this with thinking, which can sometimes feel like cutting off the breath of life, metaphorically speaking. The source also describes the mind as a kind of recording machine, right? Playing these old negative records, often rooted in fear. Thinking it's protecting you by constantly rehashing potential dangers.
But the source argues that fear is only genuinely useful in moments of real, immediate physical danger, like, avoiding a speeding car,
Right.
In civilized society, most day-to-day fear is just unnecessary. And paradoxically, it tends to attract the very thing that is feared.
Like the old saying about dogs smelling fear, or maybe bullies and predators targeting those who radiate vulnerability and fear, what you project with your attention and energy tends to come back.
So cultivating awareness involves recognizing and learning to let go of those unnecessary fear recordings.
Another practice mentioned is simply slowing down.
Yeah, this is presented as a technique to increase mindfulness, regain control in stressful situations, and kind of take the steam out of anxiety. The example given is helping a student overcome nausea and fear on uneven surfaces, like a trampoline.
How did slowing down help there?
By breaking down the movements into incredibly slow steps, it allowed him to process the sensation, the feeling, and regain control gradually, instead of being overwhelmed by the speed and instability.
So it's about deliberate slowness leading to calm and control, not the tired dullness that comes from low energy.
Exactly. And the source applies this to processing information slowly and attentively for true perception, rather than relying on mindless repetition because your attention wasn't fully present the first time around.
Attentive, slow learning leads to understanding, not just memorization. Makes sense.
Then the source introduces a more structured practice called psychonavigation.
Okay, psychonavigation. What's the core idea?
It's described as a method for taking conscious control of your attention for a defined period, maybe 15 minutes, something like that. The goal is to calm the mind, strengthen your willpower, and learn to intentionally direct your focus rather than having it drift or get stuck automatically.
And it involves intentionally shifting your attention between different modes, like negative, neutral, positive, perhaps in a fixed rhythm.
Yes, exactly. The source suggests alternating attention, maybe every 60 seconds. You can focus on a problem or something you dislike but viewed curiously, not judgmentally, then shift to a neutral object or thought, then shift to a positive outcome or a desired feeling.
And the intentional focus on the negative isn't about dwelling on it.
No, it's described as a purposeful desensitization, done on your terms, for a set amount of time to sort of take the charge out of it.
And the discipline of sticking to that rhythm, that pace, strengthens your self-determination, your ability to choose where your attention goes.
That's the idea. It mentions using pacing tools like an inner clock, focusing on your breathing, or even using audio guides to keep the rhythm.
The source provides some intriguing examples of these sessions, right?
It does. There's the student with the allergy, for instance. They used psychonavigation to shift attention between the physical allergy symptoms observed with curiosity, not resistance then to neutral objects, then visualizations of healing color and their ideal healthy state.
And eventually
exposing themselves to the allergen itself in tiny amounts while maintaining that detached observation. The source notes that the belief in the possibility of change might be the most potent factor here, amplified by the structured attention practice.
Wow. That's a powerful combination, the technique and the belief working together.
There's another example about attracting business through a walking psychonavigation session, combining stating intentions aloud, expressing gratitude, visualizing desired outcomes, and actively shifting attention between nearby and distant objects in the environment while walking.
And the result.
The source claims this focused intention and energy accumulation resulted in a large, unexpected business order appearing days later. It frames intention setting as actively directing that attention energy towards a desired future.
And there was one about increasing energy.
Yes, simply asking, what is an even higher thought than that, every minute or so, to consciously guide the mind towards higher levels of fascination, appreciation, or even bliss.
That sounds like it moves towards what the source calls reaching out further.
Exactly. This is described as the highest level of basic psychonavigation. It's where you gently guide your attention to new, more joyful or sort of higher vibrational realities, moving from visualizing a sports car to feeling the joy of driving it, then maybe the joy of driving different cars, then focusing purely on the feeling of joy itself.
And then maybe visualizing flying a designer spaceship, as the example goes.
Right. That's where the boundary between what we typically call reality and imagination starts to get really blurry, as the source points out. And it connects this ability to accessing higher intelligence, creativity, and deeper states of happiness.
So the implication is that consciousness itself might not draw such a hard line between real and imagined.
That seems to be the suggestion, that intentionally directing attention towards elevated states or possibilities can actually influence your experience and maybe even your creation of reality.
It also briefly mentions the observer mode, the detached neutral witness state, and the experiencer mode where you actively dive into and create reality.
and describes realities almost like spaces you can enter and leave simply by shifting your attention. These are definitely concepts that expand our usual understanding of consciousness.
Another really powerful practice the Source introduces is the here now technique.
Ah, yes. This is a method aimed squarely at dissolving the mental weight of the past and the future, grounding you firmly in the present moment to achieve deep presence, sometimes called witness consciousness.
And the core idea is that most problems aren't actually in the here now.
Exactly. The source makes a strong point. Most of the things we worry about don't actually exist in the immediate present. If a problem is truly present, like a physical emergency, you just deal with it. You don't sit around thinking about it. Worry mostly lives in projecting past regrets or future anxieties onto the present.
So the practice is designed to kind of sever those mental ties.
Precisely. It involves a series of sessions where you compare past or imagined objects, scenes, or thoughts to similar things in the present moment. For example, looking at a cup of coffee now and comparing it directly to the memory of a cup of coffee from yesterday.
Or thinking of a feared future scenario.
And comparing the feeling of that imagined scenario to the objective reality of the room you're sitting in right now.
And the effect, the Source claims, is that those past and future impressions start to fade. They become less emotionally charged.
That's the idea. It increases your present awareness and makes you less automatically triggered by current events based on old associations or fears. It helps you see people as your soul sees them, as the Source puts it, relating to their simple human presence in the here now, rather than projecting all sorts of baggage onto them.
It's about extroverting attention, being fully present with others, letting go of judgment and expectation.
Yes. And related to that presence is the idea of integrating feelings.
Okay, integrating feelings, how does that work?
It describes feelings as energies that basically need to be fully felt and accepted, without resisting them, without clinging to them, without trying to force them away.
Because resisting just makes them worse.
Exactly. Trying to resist feelings often makes them persist and even amplify. Integrating them by simply allowing yourself to fully experience them without judgment is said to turn that stuck energy into flow.
And the Source lists some indicators of unintegrated feelings.
It does. Things like potentially being overweight, constantly seeking rushes or stimulation, feeling uncontrolled rage, maybe fixating on conspiracy theories, or getting caught in really heated, rigid political debates. These are suggested as possible signs of unintegrated emotional energy.
And it contrasts integration with just letting off steam, like catharsis,
Right.
or getting totally consumed by the feeling.
Right. It's different from catharsis or over-identification or just avoiding feelings altogether. It suggests that stuck energy often resides physically in the torso, around the chakras maybe, and needs to be fully experienced there to be released and integrated.
Okay, let's circle back to some broader concepts the Source revisits, like the idea of importance versus unimportance.
Yeah, the source argues that much of what society labels as important, sex, politics, celebrity news, even intense focus on things like extraterrestrials, is often artificially inflated specifically to capture and bind collective attention.
They're like attention hooks.
Exactly. And decreating that perceived importance, consciously deciding it's not that important to you, releases your attention from those hooks.
It challenges you to look at your own life and consider what you currently deem important or unimportant, and how that's maybe shifted over time. The author mentions their own changing focus regarding ETs, for example.
It's a powerful reminder that we assign importance, and we can consciously reassign it to direct our attention towards what truly matters to us individually.
The concept of regard versus neglect is also emphasized again.
Using that stark example of the two contrasting houses, one clearly cared for, one neglected. The source discusses cultivating regard as intentionally introducing more lovingness into your life and environment through simple acts of care.
And the story of the author cleaning the student's neglected house.
Yeah, it demonstrates that sometimes simple, practical attention and action are needed more than just talking about things. And even small acts of care, like dusting off a forgotten painting of the daughters, can shift the energy and bring a palpable sense of feeling and connection back into a space or a life.
Simple acts of conscious attention and care create a feeling of regard.
Which ties directly back to the source's fundamental definition of love, remember? Giving attention, time, and space.
Right. And the source suggests that any lack we experience, maybe a difficult client, a distant relationship, even physical ailments, can often be addressed by applying this principle. Consciously giving more attention, time, or space to the situation or person, but with that quality of regard.
The smiling experiment is brought up again, too, as a practice for cultivating that inner regard.
And it's not about forcing a fake smile on your face.
No, not at all. It's about cultivating an inner feeling of radiance or positive intention, like an inner smile, that can lift your own mood and often evokes a surprisingly positive response from others. The source notes how rare genuine smiling actually is, globally, and asks you to consider, what would your life be like if you treated everyone you met with simple kindness and that genuine inner smile, without expecting anything back?
It's about choosing to view the world with new, more positive eyes,
Mm-hmm.
letting go of old, maybe hardened attitudes.
Yeah. Then there's the principle of quality over quantity.
Ah, yes, this seems crucial.
The source strongly argues that intensity and quality of attention or action are often far more impactful and important than mere duration or quantity. The examples are great, needing less high-quality, nutritious food than low-quality junk. A short, intense workout being more effective than a long, lazy one.
The quality of focused attention in a relationship mattering more than the sheer number of hours spent vaguely together.
Valuing one genuinely pleasant customer interaction over many mediocre ones. The source claims your overall quality of life increases significantly when you selflessly dedicate yourself to the present moment with heightened attention, rather than being preoccupied with the past or future or always trying to get something out of the moment.
You can elevate the quality of any experience, even washing dishes or taking a shower, just by bringing your full quality attention to it.
It makes every moment potentially much richer.
The source also touches on the joy of surprise.
Yeah, suggesting that surprise arises when our assumptions or fixed routines about how things should be are broken. It's that unexpected deviation that delights us.
And it encourages deliberately creating positive surprises for others.
As a way to open yourself up to receiving positive surprises from the universe, essentially. Linking this willingness to amazement to increased presence and that conscious choice to see life not as mundane but as potentially miraculous in every moment.
It's about actively choosing to be open to wonder. I like that.
Mm-hmm. Humor is also discussed as a pretty powerful indicator of a person's level of consciousness or flexibility.
How so?
Well, the source suggests that exaggerated seriousness or a rigid lack of humor often signals fixed positions, inflexible rules, or maybe even hidden agendas, because maintaining that kind of rigidity costs a tremendous amount of energy.
And it frames watching comedy and laughter not just as entertainment,
but as genuinely spiritual activities, things that release stuck energy and have real physical health benefits. Humor, the source notes, often comes from observing deviations from perceived norms, highlighting an underlying comedic absurdity that it believes is apparent from a higher perspective. It helps puncture the ego's tendency to take itself way too seriously.
The source even offers that provocative piece of advice. Don't trust a teacher or group without humor.
That's a great filter to keep in mind, yeah.
Now let's tackle that big one we touched on earlier, the paradox of resistance.
This is really a core teaching in the source. Trying to hide from, avoid, or suppress something doesn't make it go away. It actually amplifies it.
Like if you desperately fear looking awkward.
You will likely appear awkward, yeah. If you try hard not to be boring, you might come across as trying too hard and, well, seem boring. What you resist persists, and often gets magnified by the energy of your resistance.
So the counterintuitive solution is to just allow it. Allow yourself to be awkward, make mistakes, be boring.
Essentially, yes. And the source introduces a metaphysical perspective here, suggesting that in an infinite universe, you can't truly possess or lose anything fundamentally, which, if you accept it, removes the existential need to desperately worry or resist outcomes.
And based on this, it proposes deliberately acting out the fear.
Kind of, like saying, okay, I'm boring, or intentionally stuttering just slightly if you fear stuttering, or voluntarily disclosing a secret you've been hiding and resisting. The idea is that by removing the target of resistance, the hiddenness, the struggle against it, you release its power over you.
That's challenging, but potentially very liberating for that stuck energy.
Definitely requires courage.
The source also makes an interesting distinction regarding augmented reality.
Yeah, it contrasts genuine augmented reality, which it defines as being fully vibrantly present in the here now, perceiving the world richly through your own heightened attention.
With certain technologies that might actually diminish presence?
Right. Technologies that pull your attention deeply into a virtual world, away from your physical environment. The source provocatively calls this decreased reality.
Linking full presence to increased well-being and energy, because it dissolves that energy drain of past-future worry. Well, external triggers constantly try to pull us out of that present state.
And the source mentions techniques to snap back into presence, finding something more interesting to focus on in your immediate environment, using cold water like a splash to the face.
Or in extreme cases.
A moment of danger, yeah, which forces your attention into the absolute present. And the source even floats that really provocative idea that perhaps higher consciousness, or maybe our higher selves, might sometimes orchestrate small accidents as a kind of wake-up call to force us back into vital presence when we've drifted too far.
That's a pretty intense thought that the universe might literally nudge us towards presence.
It certainly puts a different spin on unexpected events, doesn't it?
Finally, spontaneity is linked back to a high state of awareness.
Yes, seeing genuine spontaneity as emerging from a high meditative state, almost near thoughtlessness, where actions arise intuitively from a higher self, rather than being meticulously planned or worried over by the analytical mind.
So the suggestion is to macro-manage your inner state.
Exactly. Cultivate a relaxed demeanor, clear intentions, a loving attitude, get the big picture right internally. And then the small details of your day, the micros, can unfold spontaneously and harmoniously from that foundation.
And it points out that over-planning or trying to pre-pave everything mentally, while it might feel safe, removes the possibility of positive surprise from tomorrow.
And it echoes that earlier point about information overload, too, noting that excessive information, like constantly scrolling the internet, can devalue individual pieces and breed dissatisfaction because your attention is just overwhelmed and scattered. Less, handled with quality attention, is often so much more.
Wow. Okay. We have covered a tremendous amount of ground today, really diving into the core concepts of attention and awareness from this fascinating source material.
We really have. We started with that surprising claim that rigid attention might be the root of problems, contrasting it with calm, inclusive awareness. We explored how attention functions as an energy, shaping our perception and even influencing things like pain.
We discussed the dynamics of attention and social interaction, how internal states seem to dictate external experience.
And we really delved into some powerful practices like psychonavigation and the here-now technique. Tools for intentionally directing your focus, cultivating presence, integrating emotions, and freeing yourself from the grip of past and future worries.
The central message woven throughout all of this seems to be that your attention isn't just a passive receptor, is it? It's an active, dynamic force.
Absolutely. An energy, a tool, and maybe the key to actively shaping your perception and your experience of reality. You have more power to direct it than you might realize.
It's not just something that happens to you. It's like a muscle you can actually train.
Exactly. So maybe to leave you with a thought to explore as you go about your day, something to kind of chew on from this deep dive.
Okay.
If the source is right, and consciousness perhaps doesn't truly differentiate between what we call reality and imagination, and if where you place your attention is genuinely where you build your reality, then what possibilities are just waiting out there for you to dedicate your conscious attention to and bring into vibrant existence right now?